Out to the field here at AT&T Stadium, the 2025 Big 12 Football Championship powered by Edward Jones, along with Taylor McHarg. I am Ari Temkin. We are 2 hours away from kickoff in a game that stands, Taylor, as one of the biggest, maybe the biggest, for both Texas Tech and BYU in this Big 12 Championship.
And we got to the two best teams, right? I mean, it feels like this is exactly what I think we expected. And especially, you work through the month of November and how many teams had a chance in the ebbs and flows of this league. I think Texas Tech was a constant all season. We all expected to be here. BYU getting better and better as the season goes along. I think playing their best football right now. And, we're expecting a phenomenal atmosphere, a sellout crowd here today. And I think this game will be a lot better version than the first go-around back earlier in the season. All
right, we are 15 minutes away from visiting with BYU head football coach Kalani Sitake. Joey Maguire, Texas Tech football coach, will join us a little bit later on. So we are loaded up here on the field at AT&T Stadium inside of 2 hours before kick. And, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, this has been a conference, especially over the last decade with this Big 12 championship being reintroduced, that, we didn't really know who was going to participate in the Big 12 championship games up until the final week. These two teams, I mean, you can throw Utah in the mix, but for the most part, you've had Cincinnati, Houston had some good runs, but all year, Texas Tech and BYU were the best teams in the conference.
And especially Texas Tech. I mean, going all the way back to the first part of the season, when they went on the road and beat Utah, and it had big noon kickoff, they had all the eyes of the sport on them. I think you saw this is a team that is going to be relevant all season. And the way that they play defense, that travels. And that showed up time and time again. For BYU, I think the moment that everything kind of turned for them was, obviously, they go to Tech the first go-around, and it's the only time this season that I thought they looked shell-shocked. The moment looked too big for them. The game that I thought was most impressive was they were playing a TCU team that was surging late in the year, and they dominated the Horned Frogs. And I think that was the moment where it looked like, okay, this is a championship-caliber team. They had already beaten Utah earlier in the season, but it looked like they had moved past, because sometimes a loss like that they had against Texas Tech, that can derail a season. And it did not for BYU. I think Bear Bachmeier, as a freshman, has played better and better as the season's gone along. And it did. You're exactly right. A couple weeks ago, I think we all expected that this is where we were going to end up. Everything worked itself out around them, and I do think we have the two best teams in the Big 12 here today.
All right, we have so much to break down, so much to get to. Of course, we're going to talk about everything going on across the country today on this championship Saturday, what happened last night, how it could impact all of the college football playoff implications. But, I mean, this is going to be an electric environment here. And we're going to start to see the stadium fill up over the next 2 hours. I mean, last year, this place was rocking. For Arizona State and Iowa State, there was about 55,000. They're expecting anywhere between 85 and even 90,000 with standing room only inside this building, because DFW, the Metroplex, is full of Texas Tech alums. It is the largest city with Texas Tech alums. And BYU, they've got fans everywhere. They travel. Yeah. So, I mean, this is going to be an electric atmosphere.
This will be a good one. And it announced the sellout earlier in the week. And like you mentioned it, here in AT&T Stadium, you've got a pretty massive standing room only area that they've already sold a decent amount of the allotment for those tickets as well. So I think we still expect it to be probably 2/3 Red Raider fans, just given the proximity here in Dallas to Lubbock. But I think the BYU contingent, I mean, you've seen on social media, they've talked about, hey, we're going to travel well, we will be on site. So make no mistake about it, though, this will be a rowdy environment in about 2 hours.
Yeah, I got to say, I'm, as a radio host by trade, not used to standing in front of lights and a camera like this. And even when I'm in front of a camera and lights, at least I'm at a desk and I've got a computer in front of me. This is bizarre. I don't know what to do with my hands. This is a very bizarre setup for me. You're a pro though, so you're just gonna carry me throughout the show today.
I'm doing the same thing. What do I do with my offhand? But no, this has been great. It's been great. Our Inside the 12 with Pete Souza has been awesome all season. And again, an opportunity to cap this thing off with two teams that we're going to talk more about this, but I don't care what happens today. Both of these teams deserve to be in the college football playoff.
Well, I think in some ways it's, that's what gets lost in all of this. And, look, nobody wants to lose, and winning championships is what sports all about, and winning at the highest level. Totally get all that, and I agree. But, think about it. In August, BYU lost its quarterback. A quarterback, by the way,
right,
who led Tulane to an American Athletic Conference championship last night.
Yep.
But they lost their quarterback in August. So you're thinking, what's this team going to look like? How good are they going to be? it's a remarkable story that BYU is even here. I get it. BYU fans are upset about the playoff rankings. They should be. Their resume is so much better than many of the other schools ranked ahead of them. There's no question about it. But like when you put the full context of how incredible it is, what happened to them, the fact that they've got a true freshman quarterback who spent spring in Palo Alto, California, getting ready for a different program. I mean, this is a remarkable story regardless of how this finishes.
You're exactly right. And again, Bear Bachmeier was not, he's a true freshman. He was not on campus in the spring. It wasn't an example where a guy graduates early and goes through spring ball. Bear Bachmeier didn't get on campus until June. And Jake Retzlaff leaves the program right around that time. End of May, beginning of June, he departs. And all of a sudden now you've got to pivot to your true freshman quarterback. And credit to this entire team. And obviously Bear Bachmeier, because he's the guy that's actually having to go out and perform at the quarterback position. But I think they've done a fantastic job of protecting him. And I don't mean just with the offensive line play.
Right.
I mean play calling, doing a good job of trying to make sure that they're putting him in the best situation possible. And again, Bear Bachmeier has gotten better and better each week as the season's gone along. And I think you'll see today the experience that he gained and how tough that was in the first matchup in Lubbock. I think that will benefit him tremendously here because in this, we already talked about the environment. He saw some of that in Lubbock back when they played the first go-around. I think it'll be a lot better for him today.
Well, and such a great point you brought up from Aaron Roderick, the offensive coordinator of BYU, that standpoint. I mean, when you look at the way the offense evolved over the course of the season, that's what modern college football is built on. And, Colorado, to me, is a great example of this, where you have this offensive coordinator who has been around the NFL. He's been a head coach of the NFL, but he's this old school line of thinking of like, this is my offense, this is the offense I run. That just doesn't work in 2025 in college football, regardless of if you've got a true freshman quarterback, because, again, the Colorado situation, you've got Caden Salter coming in, there's transfer portal quarterbacks. Like, You've got to have an offense that's moldable to the skill set of the players you have. And I thought, there's no better compliment to the job that Aaron Roderick did than how effective this offense was and how much it's evolved. It's still dependent upon being effective on the ground, but the way that they've, slowly brought Bear Bachmeier along, and now this culminates with, all right, this is like your master's degree. Like you've just graduated and gotten your college degree. Now it's time for your master's degree. This is where you're going to get it.
Early in the season, like you would expect with really any true freshman quarterback, they relied on their running game in BYU and a lot of RPO play action off of it, which there's a lot of offenses that have a ton of success regardless of how old their quarterback is. I think what you saw with BYU is over the course of the season, they introduced more and more downfield passing plays and shot plays where it's not just a half-field read. He's going through a full-field read and having to – there's more that he's able to do at the line now. Now, he's not going up there and changing full plays, but he's able to, within their run checks or RPO checks, they're putting more on his plate, and that's – by this point, he's really playing like a sophomore. I mean, he's already graduated from his freshman year, just almost like a battlefield promotion. Like, he's played so much this season and played so well, and you're seeing the play calling, just like you're describing, that's evolved because he's played so well, and they can put more on his plate as the year goes along.
Yeah, and look, I think we'll obviously get into this deeper throughout the show today, and we're so happy you chose to join us here on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios. Of course, if you've not yet already, make sure to download the TuneIn app and check out Big12Studios.com to find all the platforms that you can be streaming us on, including Tubi, Roku, Amazon Prime Video, and YouTube. But, I mean, BYU has to be effective in the passing game today to be successful here. Like, they're going to have to hit some shot plays. They're going to have to make big plays with Bear Bachmeier's arm in order to win this football game today.
Absolutely. And they're also going to have to win on first down. Meaning, and that doesn't mean you're picking up every first down or you're getting 8-9 yards. But you can't go backwards, and you don't want to be in 2nd and 10 every time. And I think that was a lot of what happened. We talk about a tilted field sometimes. What does that actually mean? BYU spent almost their entire matchup in the first matchup between these two teams on the wrong side of the field, drive starting inside the 10 and 20-yard line, and on 3rd and 10 situations, 3rd and long situations. They were a combined 4 of 17 between 3rd and 4th down. You are not going to win very many football games. And, oh, by the way, they turned the ball over 3 times and created 0 against Texas Tech. All of those things, you have to flip that over if you're BYU to have a chance to win today.
Yeah. All right, Kalani Sitake is coming up. Of course, later on in the show as well, we'll be talking with Joey Maguire. That's Taylor McHarg. I am Ari Tepkin. We are so pleased you joined us here on the field at AT&T Stadium here for the 2025 Big 12 Football Championship presented by Edward Jones. And you're listening to us on TuneIn and watching us on Big 12 Studios. with Kalani Sitake, the head football coach for the BYU Cougars, with Taylor McCarr, I'm Ari Tepkin. This is the Big 12 Football Championship pregame show. And, I mean, first off, I know you're a music guy. So were you rocking any music coming in? Is there any good pregame music for you? Or I know you're a Bob Marley guy, so is that what you're checking out?
I just listen to everything. I mean, luckily I'm not the one playing, so it makes it easy for me. And I'm just trying to have fun and just be an example to the guys of just staying loose and enjoying the moment.
I mean, is that what it is? You don't change anything, right? Keep everything the same. Keep it, the same every week, all throughout the season.
I think they have to know that this is different. I mean, but we want to be able to control the emotions and perform on the field. But there's nothing wrong with letting the energy build it up and letting your nerves help you in this game.
Coach, when you think back to the first matchup, and we talked about this a little bit on Inside the 12 this week, the first matchup compared to now, when you talk with your team this week, what do you want to see most changed from that first matchup to now?
Well, we already talked about it after the game, so I thought we changed quite a bit since that game. We'll just find out today in this game, and we'll see what happens. But I think we're a different team. We've learned from a lot of the things that we've done in the last few weeks, and actually learned a lot from this experience that we had in Lubbock. Now it's here in Arlington, and now we have, you don't get a lot of opportunities to right or wrong. Yeah. So, we didn't play as well as we thought we could, but Texas Tech had a lot to do with that. And hopefully today we can show the improvement that we've made.
How proud are you of your true freshman in Bear Bachmeyer and his growth, not just as a player, but as a person throughout this season in a year where he wasn't on campus until June and becomes the guy, and now you're here, opportunity for a championship. Just how proud are you of him this season?
I'm super proud of him and the growth that he's made, the progress that he's made. The truth is, I just want him to have fun today and know that he doesn't have to do it all alone. He's got a great team that rally around him, and just really excited for him to show out a lot different than he did in Lubbock.
I'll never forget, before the first year you guys were in the Big 12, we talked at media days. It was like, are you guys ready to join this conference? And you're like, we've been preparing for this for years. This wasn't just something that happened overnight that we suddenly realized we're going to be in the Big 12. Can you just speak to that? And obviously now having won 22 of your last 25 football games, it's clear that there was some preparation involved there.
Well, I get to coach some wonderful young men, and we get to perform in front of an amazing fan base. And so when you put all that together, you have to have a strategic plan. And so putting these together, it's nice that it's kind of worked out. But I also want these guys to enjoy the game. It's still a game. It's what we loved playing when we were younger. And so I want them to have every opportunity to enjoy the 16 minutes that we're being provided to play this game.
Coach, the first matchup, Parker Kingston's one of the best returners in all of college football. First matchup, one of the defining plays in that game, though, was the muff punt by him. How important was it, do you think, for him to have that return a week ago, building that confidence this season, and how impactful do you think he'll be today, specifically on special teams?
Well, life's about mistakes, and then how do you respond to them? I've been really pleased with the way that he's responded to all the adversity that's come in his life, not just in football. And so we have amazing young men, and so does Texas Tech. This is going to be a great matchup. We're looking forward to the game, but we also know that we can play better and that we've improved a lot, and this is the moment for us to show it.
What do you have to do to win this game today?
No, I think keep it simple. Fundamentals of the game, and we got to be physical and just got to enjoy it. It's going to hurt, but it's going to feel good at the same time.
One of the great coaches in college football. BYU has won 22 of the last 25 football games. Good luck today, Coach. Thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Kalani Sitake joining us on the field here at AT&T Stadium in Arlington as we get ready for the Big 12 Championship. More from the field at AT&T Stadium next. With Taylor McCarr, I'm Ari Tepkin. This is the Big 12 Championship pregame show on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios. Back here on the field at AT&T Stadium for the Big 12 Football Championship. This is the Big 12 Football Championship pregame show, along with Taylor McHargue, the former Rice quarterback. I am Ari Temkin. Of course, you can always catch us on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios. And if you need to find out where you can watch us on Big 12 Studios, big12studios.com, and make sure to download the TuneIn app. All right, we just had Kalani Sitake on with us.
Yep.
Impressions from Kalani, there, the BYU head football coach.
Calm and ready to go. But that's always Coach. I mean, that's every time we talk to him, he instills confidence because he's always the same. And I think that's what you want out of your head coach. I think both of these guys, Joey Maguire and Kalani Sitake, have been so generous with their time. And we talked about it off air with him, just congratulating him on getting his extension done and love for this league and for BYU and Texas Tech, that both these guys are going to be here long term. But he struck me as a guy that completely under control, understands what they need to do today to come out of here with a win. And if I'm playing for him, I feel like he would be instilling a lot of confidence in me to get ready to go.
Yeah, I'm sure Iowa State fans are listening to this right now like, man, I wish Kalani would have taken that job. We'll get into that in a little bit here coming up. But, yeah, the other thing that really stood out to me was, you asked about the last time they played. And it's funny because that's been such a huge talking point this week, obviously. And, from BYU's perspective, it's like, yeah, after that game, we looked at the things that went wrong, and we fixed them. And, look, I mean, it's obvious that L.J. Martin is a better player today than he was in that game. He was just returning from injury. He was not as effective. Now that he's been able to get his feet under him, he's been dominant in the last 3 games after that. So it's funny because we always think about it, and you played, so you know this too, right? Like, we always think about it like, well, they played a month ago. How much do we take away from that game? And the reality is, inside that locker room, they put that game to bed the week after, and they moved on and played 3 more games.
I think the environment, more than anything else, is what BYU will benefit from having. Remember, you go back to that game. I mean, that had College Game Day.
Right.
That had the eyes of the world were on that game. Pat Mahomes is at the game. I mean, it was the attention that was on that game, and for BYU, you're bringing your true freshman quarterback, and they had already beat Utah by this point. So it wasn't like this was early in the season. But you could tell that environment, I think, got to them early. BYU will benefit from having played in that environment because it's going to look a lot like that today. Now, obviously, it's a neutral site, but it'll be 2/3, maybe even a little more red here today, just given our proximity again to Lubbock from where we are in Dallas. But I think BYU, I do not expect to see them nearly as flat. I don't expect to see them flat at all compared to that first matchup where they came out a little shell-shocked.
We see Baron Morton getting ready over here, the Texas Tech quarterback. He's going to be obviously a huge focal point in this game as a quarterback at Texas Tech. But what's interesting, too, is I look at both of these teams, they're very similar, right? Like, they're not asking their quarterback to do everything. They have very good, effective ground games. Tech has multiple backs. We haven't seen a ton of Sione Moa this year for BYU, but he's healthy now. So, does he spell L.J. Martin a little bit in this game? Do they get more of that Jacoby Williams, Cameron Dickey two-headed monster that Texas Tech has?
Right.
But they're very good on defense. Now, BYU's a little bit different in terms of how they play defense and how effective they are on defense. They turn you over, whereas Texas Tech just bludgeons you to death with their front 7. But they're very similar teams.
They're 2 of the top 3 defenses, Tech being the top, and BYU in total defense number 3 in the league. And usually when you get to championship time of the season, those are the kinds of teams that are left standing. And I think that's exactly what we got here. And like you said, Baron Morton in this offense, I think, is more explosive than what BYU has on their side. But a lot of that with BYU is, like you talked about, L.J. Martin running the football and Bear Bachmeier running the football. Even for a freshman, this is a big physical quarterback. And when they're at their best, BYU is play action. There's some zone read, RPO off of it. And that's what they lacked in the first matchup. Because guess what? Play action doesn't work on 3rd and long. Right? Linebackers in secondary understand you're not going to hand this ball off on 3rd and 11, so the play action doesn't really do any good. That is an element today that, again, I keep saying this stat because 4 of 17, when they met up the first time between 3rd and 4th down conversions, they have got to get it to 3rd and short because you can stay on the field. And if you get around midfield today, everybody just remember this. If they get around midfield in this game, BYU is going to go for it if it gets in that 4th and 1, 2, or 3 range. So your play calling, you're around midfield, and it's 3rd and medium, you got 2 plays to pick up that first down. That's how they'll think about it here today.
Yeah, it's starting to fill up here at AT&T Stadium. Obviously, the players are on the field getting warm, getting loose, getting ready to go. It's going to be a very, very fun game. And, obviously, when you think about this game and the implications of it, today's going to be a huge day across college football. It's what makes, one of the aspects of the 12-team playoff that has made Championship Saturday so much fun is the fact that there's so much up in the air right now heading into this day. So when you look big picture at this thing, we had some championship games last night. Tulane, with BYU's former quarterback, Jake Retzloff, won the American Athletic Conference Championship in the rain last night in New Orleans.
Yep.
We had James Madison, who's another one of the group of 5 programs that won a conference championship last night that is ranked, that has the potential to now be in that conversation. Because remember, the way the automatic bids work is automatic bids are awarded to the top 5 highest rated conference champions. It doesn't say the Power 4 and then the best group of 5 conference champs.
That's right.
It's the highest rated conference champs. So depending on what happens later tonight in the ACC championship game, we could be looking at James Madison and Tulane potentially getting in. And then, of course, if Alabama wins, they'd have 3 losses but get an automatic bid out of the SEC. So, or Georgia would get the automatic bid and Alabama would have 3 losses. Do they get in? So there's a lot going on today, Taylor.
Still a lot to sort out. If Duke wins, I think the consensus is, and if you look at the odds and the percentages, if Duke wins the ACC, in all likelihood, the ACC does not have a representative in the college football playoff, which is unbelievable that we're at this point. But
well,
I just
even
don't
more
think,
so because Miami is as good as they've been.
Right, and that right now, the way that they're slotted, Miami, because they're not playing today, they don't have an opportunity to not only play their way in via the ACC championship, but there's not an extra game for them to build more credibility. And right now, they're on the outside looking in, along with Vanderbilt there with 2 losses. But for going back to the ACC, if Duke were to win, the way it looks right now, they would be on the outside looking in, and you would have JMU and Tulane that would be in. If Virginia wins, it'll be interesting to see who the Group of 5 representative is. But for BYU, again, I still believe, regardless of what happens here today, that BYU should be a playoff team. The scenario that I'm interested in, if BYU loses close, say they lose by a field goal, and Alabama loses by multiple scores, because they both competed in their conference championships, what happens in that 9, 10, 11 spot? Because remember, 11 and 12 will be conference champions, some combination of G5, ACC, so you need to be in the top 10 to be in. You got Notre Dame, who's not playing today. They've got 2 losses. They're sitting at the 10 spot. And Alabama, who's playing in the SEC championship. If Alabama loses ugly and BYU were to lose close, field goal, 1 score, I don't think it's impossible that the committee would flip those or slide Notre Dame all the way out and have BYU in at the 9 or 10 and Alabama in at the 9 or 10 and have them both be in.
You think it has to be losing ugly if you're Alabama? Because, I mean, losing anyway, they have 3 losses.
I know, but out of the SEC and the depth of that league, if that ends up being a competitive game, Georgia's one of the best teams in college football. If that game is close, Alabama will almost certainly be in. I think regardless, in almost any scenario, Alabama will be in. It's more about what do you do with Notre Dame? If BYU loses this game close, is that a team that you have 2 losses, you don't compete in a conference, do they bump them out? That's the one scenario. Obviously, it's easiest for BYU if they were to win here today, and I think the league would have both teams in. I don't think, regardless of what happens today, I think Texas Tech is in.
Yeah, I agree. It just depends on if Tech wins, they're going to be a top 4 seed and have a bye. Could potentially be back here for the Cotton Bowl, depending again on what happens elsewhere and where they end up being slotted. I mean, we were talking a little bit with Scotty Rogers, who heads up the Cotton Bowl, and he was telling us kind of the way in which it gets slotted.
Yeah.
And basically, the Big 12 champion, if it finishes in the top 2 spot or the top 3 spot, it'll be playing in the Cotton Bowl. Otherwise, if Indiana wins, it kind of gets slotted based on, how close Indiana might lose. Are they then going to be ranked ahead of Tech when they get the Cotton Bowl? So we'll see how it goes. But, I mean, Tech would love nothing more than to win this game and then have the potential to be back here at the Cotton Bowl in the quarterfinal matchup.
And have a bye, which how huge would that be? Every team at this part of the season is banged up. And getting a chance to get healthy, clean up some of those soft tissue injuries, guys that are recovering from little deals that maybe they're playing through right now, benefit from having that bye week. And I do think, if Tech wins here today, I think you'll see them in one of the top 4 seeds, and they'll have a bye in the first round of the playoffs.
And one of the things I think, just as we talk through these scenarios, Taylor, I assume Notre Dame's in, regardless of the BYU outcome. I'd love to think it's still up in the air, but it just doesn't appear that way. I mean, Texas A&M, if we're really going to weigh resume to resume, I mean, I mentioned Alabama having 3 losses, but Bama has way better wins, and I'm not just win, but wins than A&M does. A&M, very fortuitous that they were able to feast up and just bash the worst teams in the SEC. And so if we're just looking holistically at Notre Dame and A&M, man, BYU should already be in, regardless of the outcome here, based on those resumes against Texas Tech or Texas A&M and Notre Dame.
And BYU's got a better win over Utah than anything A&M has this year. I guess you could say their win on the road at Notre Dame, but the way that BYU beat Utah, I would put up right next to that win. And like you mentioned, A&M beat up on the bottom of the SEC. Now, A&M, a one-loss SEC team, will be in the college football playoff.
Right.
But just as a reminder, BYU, this is the first time since we've had the college football playoff rankings that a 11-1 team out of a power conference is not in the top 10. And I think all of us are sort of a lot of us are scratching our heads wondering, why is this team not already a shoo-in to be in the college football playoff? And why is today treated by some people calling this their first-round playoff game today? I disagree with that. I think regardless of what happens today, BYU should be in the college football playoff.
Right, and that's the easy way. Win and you're in. It's I get that, but why does that not seem to be the case for some of these other programs if we're weighing resume? And again, You're right. A one-loss SEC team is going to get in. Notre Dame, you can probably bring up a bigger issue, and they have representation in the college football playoff.
Right.
So, the college football playoff is made up of the 10 conference commissioners and Notre Dame's athletic director. So they get special treatment, and clearly they're getting special treatment this season, starting off 0-2 and rattling off 10 straight wins. That you could argue are not nearly as good as what BYU already has. But it is what it is. And I think, hopefully over time, the Big 12 will be able to build a little bit more credibility that they won't have to play these resume argument games, because sometimes public perception takes some time to catch up. And it's obvious this league has been a league of parity. And now it's not. This is a year where the league is not a league of parity. This is a year where the SEC has more parity this year than the Big 12.
Right.
The Big 12 was way more top-heavy, and so there's, the quote-unquote measuring stick games that Texas and Oklahoma used to represent for this league, that this league was looking to have in a post-Texas and Oklahoma world, where they have it now. Texas Tech and BYU were that. And certainly I think Tech has been shown some of that, credibility in the eyes of the voters. They're a top 4 seed right now based on their body of work, which they obviously should be. But ultimately, it just feels like this is something that needs to, over time, change with maybe playoff wins or something that helps to build the credibility for this league, Taylor.
And that's why BYU and the committees talked about this. The way that they lost against Texas Tech is why they're ranked where they are, because that is overshadowing the other 11 wins that they had on the schedule this year. It was that they got dominated against a team that, I think we all agree, Texas Tech is one of the top 5 teams in the country. But the way that they lost, the committee has, in my opinion, punished them too harshly, having them on the outside looking in right now. But that is also why the scenario we talked about, I think, is possible, where if they were to lose close and show, okay, on a neutral site, your team that has a true freshman quarterback has grown, if they take this to an overtime game or a last-second field goal by Texas Tech, and it's clearly more competitive this go-around, I think there is a world where BYU could still get in, and either Alabama in a blowout loss could be out, or they just bump Notre Dame altogether.
All right, just to reset the deck a little bit here. So James Madison already ranked in the college football playoff rankings. They won their conference championship, the Sun Belt Championship, last night. Tulane beat North Texas, 2 ranked teams. Most likely Tulane is in regardless of anything else. But the Duke-Virginia ACC championship game, that's the one to watch for tonight. If Duke were to win, that could bring up the chaos scenario for college football and allow James Madison in as being one of the top 5 conference champions that would get an automatic bid. So we shall see. It's really about, if Duke wins, that's the chaos scenario here, Taylor.
That's right. If Duke wins in the ACC, there is a path, like you described, where the ACC, one of the power conferences, would not have a representative in all likelihood in the college football playoff.
Even with a top 15 team
in Miami.
That is not in the ACC championship.
I think that's where you'll see a number of things change in the offseason, specifically the tiebreaker rules for the ACC. I think they would do away with the current structure they have right now.
Miami wins all tiebreakers. That's the new rule.
But for the group of 5, James Madison obviously sitting there. I think Tulane already being ranked ahead of JMU. I would be surprised if Tulane wasn't already in. I think they likely are. So JMU I think they'll be pulling for Duke tonight in a big way, hoping that that chaos scenario does happen and the ACC's on the outside looking in.
All right, with Taylor McCarg, I am Ari Tepkin. This is the Big 12 Football Championship pregame show. You're catching us on TuneIn and on Big 12 Studios. More from the field, including Joey Maguire and our keys to victory. Plus, we'll pick the game all coming up as we get you closer and closer to kickoff. We are closing it on 1 hour away from kickoff of the 2025 Big 12 Football Championship presented by Edward Jones here at AT&T Stadium. Welcome back out to the field here at AT&T Stadium ahead of the 2025 Big 12 Football Championship. We are closing it on 1 hour away from kickoff between Texas Tech and BYU. And if you can see behind us, at least, I don't know if it's still going on, Jacob Rodriguez, the Butkus Award winner, was playing catch with some of the Texas Tech fans, the band, some of the students. Pretty cool to see.
He's, like you mentioned, winner of the Butkus Award last night. Best linebacker in college football. I think he should be in New York. I think the stat that people don't talk enough about, he creates a turnover a game. Okay? I mean, that's unbelievable to get you one possession back every single game. And
every game.
He's created a turnover
he does.
in every
Not
single
Texas
game.
Tech's defense.
Right. And
he does.
And Joey Maguire last night, when they announced that he'd won the Butkus Award, he's giving credit to the defensive line ahead of him and Romello Height, everybody up front that has done such a good job getting after the quarterback all season. But the instincts for Jacob Rodriguez, I think every time you watch him, that's what stands out to me. I go back to the interception that he creates against BYU, where Bear Bachmeier's moving around, going back to his left. There is a receiver open in the middle of the field, and Jacob Rodriguez pivots, works back towards the middle, gets a hand up on the ball. It ends up being a tip ball interception. That's a play. You could watch football all season. You may see one or two plays like that all year. So he's a guy, he's special instincts. He's going to have a long, long career in the NFL. And, again, I think he should be a finalist for the Heisman Trophy and go to New York.
Yeah, and one of the things I think that stands out to me is, like, this was a guy that was always a standout player at Tech as long as he's been there. The problem was he's been on some bad defenses.
Right.
And it's this perfect example, Taylor, of how in football everything affects everything else. And you can have a guy, and I'm assuming not just will he be a finalist in New York for the Heisman, but he won the Butkus. I mean, he's up for the Lombardi. Like, he's going to win more awards. And this is a guy that could have won any of them any year. But it shows you when you've got a defensive line like they have, like, it makes a difference.
That last piece is, hit the nail on the head. You could be the best linebacker in the world, but if you're constantly having to make tackles at the second level because your defensive line's not getting pushed and shedding blocks, or you're having to cover a guy for 3, 4, 5 seconds because you don't have any pass rush, you're going to struggle. And obviously that has not been the case this year because Texas Tech has gotten after every quarterback, and that helps your linebackers. But again, like you mentioned, he's always been a dynamic player, and he was always going to have a long career. But this year I think you're getting to see just how good he is because he's benefited by the best pass rush, in my opinion, in college football.
All right, Taylor McHargue, Ari Tepkin, we are here on the field at AT&T Stadium getting ready for the 2025 Big 12 Football Championship. Last year there were 55,000 plus here for Arizona State and Iowa State. They're expecting between 85 and 90,000. It could be the highest attended, the most attended college football championship game ever.
Yeah.
In comparison to, I think it was in the 70s for a Big Ten championship and just over 80,000 for an SEC championship. So, I mean, this is going to be an incredible day for these two teams and, of course, for the Big 12.
And you're already seeing, the crowd filling in. We're going to have standing room only here today. And sometimes, look, we talked about the ACC earlier. Sometimes for these leagues, you don't end up with who everybody believes is the consensus best two league teams in your league.
This is the perfect example of that.
This is the opposite. You got the best two teams in this league, two teams that I think we both believe should be in the college football playoff regardless of what happens today. And you're going to have two crowds. Unbelievable programs, the history and tradition for BYU, a team that has a national championship. And then for Texas Tech, exactly. And for Texas Tech, a team that has been defined by Mike Leach and offense and scoring a ton of points. How unique and special is it that this team is defined by their defense? And we just spent an entire segment talking about Jacob Rodriguez and their pass rush. The teams of the past, the Graham Harrell era and Michael Crabtree, when they're throwing for 500 a game. I think this is a Texas Tech fan base that wanted this for a long time. It's the first opportunity for them to win a Big 12 championship. And I think you're going to see them. We were driving in at 7 this morning.
Oh, yeah.
They were already ready to go with the tailgating scene out
already
front.
Getting lubed up.
This will be a special environment here today in Arlington.
Yeah, they're pumping those Modelos early. I think I loved in the lead up to the first matchup between BYU and Texas Tech when Joey was asked about, biggest game since that Crabtree game. And he's like, we need to get away from that. Like, we need to create our own history. I think it's so important because, when Texas and OU were in this league, it was like so many of these programs always had to look up to Texas.
Right.
Especially like Tech. They could never get out of the Texas's shadow. And, look, when Texas and OU bolted the Big 12, there was this hysteria, and it was like, is the Big 12 going to survive? And obviously, we've seen it's not only surviving but thriving, but what it's meant for a program like Texas Tech, where you're no longer in the shadow of Texas. Now you create your own history with your own successes that have nothing to do with Texas. Like before, most of Texas Tech's successes were tied to beating Texas. Now it's playing in Big 12 championships, winning Big 12 championships, charting their own path. So, I think this is one of those blessing in disguises overall for a program to kind of stand on its own and not have a bar always be Texas, have the bar be well beyond Texas, because look what we can do. We're on our own now. We can be Texas. We can be beyond that level, and that's, I think, what they've proven this season.
And oh, by the way, that Texas Tech versus Texas this year on a neutral site, Texas Tech would be favored. And so the sites are set now, not just for, like you mentioned, winning a Big 12 championship, but for Texas Tech. I mean, this legitimately is a team that has national championship caliber talent. And so you talk about we talked off air about this, who are the fronts in college football that can block this defensive line and linebacking unit for Texas Tech? I think Ohio State and maybe Georgia. And there's only a couple of units in the entire country that I think on a down-for-down basis would be able to really be effective against this Texas Tech front. And I think that's why for CBS Sports, put together my bracket of who I think not only is in, but who ends up being in your Final Four national championship. I have Texas Tech in the national championship. So I think there's a lot of people that they're going to become a lot more familiar over the next few weeks with Texas Tech, and that this is not the Red Raider teams of the past that struggled on defense and scored a ton of points. That's obviously that's not the makeup of this team. They win by playing championship defense.
Well, and not just that they're a better on defense than offense, but elite. I mean, maybe Ohio State's better defensively.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's like Ohio State is so good and talented that they basically rest the majority of their players all year.
Yeah.
Like the stat where they've played like 100 less snaps than Texas Tech's defense has, because they're not on the field as much and they're not giving as wear and tear to their players.
Yep.
Like that's it. But like overall, that's it. It's Texas Tech and Ohio State in terms of like the best defense in college football.
That's right.
And yeah, I mean, you're right. Like you look at this, it's like at the end of the day, it's a simple game. Like it's very complex, but like if you can't block them,
you get after the quarterback and make them uncomfortable, hard to win football games. So look, Texas Tech, that's the model here today, is try to emulate exactly what you did against BYU in the first matchup, right? Get after the quarterback, get him to 3rd and long. The only difference for Texas Tech on the offensive side, they want to have more success in the red zone. Had to kick 5 field goals in the first matchup. Now, credit to that kick unit. They went 5 for 5 on field goals in the first matchup, but a number of drives that stalled out. They had a couple of key drops in the end zone. Joey Maguire talked about that in the lead up to this game. They felt like they improved in their red zone offense down the stretch, which they did. In the month of November, much better. That's an element today that has to be improved because on the defensive side, you already have the keys to success. Just go back and watch what they did in the first matchup.
Yeah, well said. All right, Taylor McCarg, Ari Tepkin with you here on the field. Your legs holding up? Your feet? Your feet?
We're good. We're good. No, this is a unique style for broadcast, but I think we're as long as I don't pass out. It's like one of those things where they tell you to bend your knees a little bit, keep the blood flowing.
Jacks,
that's right.
Get a good workout
in. That's right.
You came prepared. He came with the J's. I went with the boots. Boots were a bad choice if we're going to be standing for 2 hours, but I digress. All right, let's talk a little bit about coaching because you got 2 coaches here that just signed extensions virtually the same day. Joey Maguire, well-deserved extension. There weren't overtures for him to go elsewhere, but obviously Kalani Sitake entertained some overtures to Penn State. And, look, I never thought he was going to leave BYU. In fact, when it first came up, it's like, what? This guy grew up in Provo, a BYU fan, played for Lavelle Edwards. Like, no. He's only coached in Utah his entire career. Like, no, he's not going anywhere. But, I mean, I think it got closer to him leaving than maybe ever before. And, look, in this day and age, Taylor, you got to play the game if you're a coach. And for what he was making, what his coaches were making, and the NIL available to him, the joke, that Richard Johnson from CBS wrote about was, the defensive line for Texas Tech's making more money than BYU's entire roster. So you need to go to bat if you're Kalani to try to maximize the type of not just money you're going to get, but you have available to your coaches and to players.
For Kalani Sitake, I think it speaks to the power of the brand for BYU. Penn State, one of the top jobs in the sport. Those don't come around very often. And again, I think it speaks to the power of the brand of BYU that they retain their head coach. Now, it helps, obviously, like you mentioned, he played there. He was a fan before he went to school there. That helps retain your guy, but credit to Kalani Sitake for going to bat for his staff, for going to bat for his players, and I think that will benefit BYU tremendously. And then for Joey Maguire on the other side, we had him on Inside the 12 this week, and he said, look, I'm going to die and love it. This will be my last gig. I don't want to Joey right there.
They love him.
He said, I'm going to die in Lubbock. And hopefully that's a long, long time from now. But he said, this will be my last job. And I love that commitment that he has, where he loves Texas Tech. These fans love him, and he's going to be there a long time. And I also think, all right, it's great for both of these fan bases that they had this sorted out before this game, that this isn't something. Look at how many teams right now are having to deal with. A lot of it's already been settled, but especially at the Group of 5 level, like last night, both teams in the American Conference Championship, their head coaches are no longer there after this season. So
James Madison's coach.
Exactly. So credit to these administrations and both coaches getting these extensions done, having it all knocked out before this game so that it's not a distraction.
And, as an aside, as a guy that played at Rice, I think, it's the price of doing business, but the unfortunate reality is what we saw last night, where basically the 3 teams from the Group of 5 that have the best shot to make the playoff all are losing their coach.
Right.
That's going to become the norm in college football moving forward.
Well, it's always been, most of the time, your Group of 5 programs that you have success, that's how it goes.
But now those teams are in the playoff.
Right, and the difference now, it also happens with your players. It's not just your coaches.
Yeah,
I mean, you have a freshman All-American at a Group of 5 school, he will, in all likelihood, he's not going to be there next year. So I would love to see, we could spend a whole other segment some other time talking about this. I would love to see the calendar get corrected to where you have it more like the NFL model, where coaches move jobs after their season's over, where you're not having to deal with this. Exactly what we're doing right now, having to talk about extensions getting done so that they don't get poached before they're, as they're preparing for a championship game.
And I think it says a lot about the Big 12 that the Big 12 is able to retain so many great coaches.
Yeah.
Kenny Dillingham's a guy that certainly got, opportunities and will continue to. And these 2 guys are guys that are going to be, getting opportunities or thought of for opportunities. The Big 12, though, did lose one of those guys, albeit to Penn State, as you mentioned, a championship level program. But I mean, Matt Campbell for years turned down opportunities. I mean, he turned down an opportunity to interview with the Jets. Wouldn't even interview with an NFL team. I know in recent years the Bears have reached out. Other programs in college football have reached out.
Yeah.
So the Big 12 does lose Matt Campbell. Then he goes to Penn State. Iowa State moves quickly to hire a replacement. It's Jimmy Rogers, who for 1 year was at Washington State. He's 38 years old. He won national championships at South Dakota State as a head coach and as an assistant, as a defensive-minded coach. Before we get into the Jimmy Rogers piece, because I love the replacement, Matt Campbell put Iowa State in a different stratosphere from a football program standpoint.
And I love what their athletic director said in his comments yesterday, that Matt Campbell doesn't know Iowa State anything. And it was tearful remarks where it was clear what Matt Campbell had meant to Iowa State and that he had handled this the right way. Kind of the opposite of the Lane Kiffin departure. And for Iowa State fans, look, I think you're a play away a year ago from being in the college football playoff, and I think Matt Campbell had probably gotten Iowa State as far as he was going to be able to. I love the hire in Jimmy Rogers. Had him a couple years ago in the FCS playoffs. He fits, he's, again, like you mentioned, all the success in South Dakota at South Dakota State. I think he's going to do a great job there. He'll be a great culture fit. But for Matt Campbell, we talked about it with Kalani Sitake. If Kalani Sitake didn't play at BYU and have that emotional connection, who's to say he might not still be at BYU? A Penn State job does not come along very often. And so I think it was a great hire by Penn State. I think it was the right time for Matt Campbell. And it's one of the few times this season, and really ever, when you think about the coaching carousel and people moving around, that I actually think everybody won for the most part. I know Iowa State fans, it stings to lose your head coach, but love who they brought in at Jimmy Rogers, and I understand the move for Matt Campbell.
All right. Of course, we'll have plenty more to say on Jimmy Rogers inside the 12 on Big 12 Studios with Taylor McHarg. I am Ari Tepkin. You can catch me every weekday morning as a part of Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio on TuneIn from 7 to 10 Central, 8 to 11 Eastern Time every weekday morning. And, of course, on Monday, we'll be reacting to this game, the college football playoff, and Jimmy Rogers, the new head football coach at Iowa State. Coming up in the final hour of our pregame show, Joey Maguire is going to join us. We're also going to make our official picks. On the way next, though, we get into key matchups, key players, maybe some surprises. That's all coming up next. With Taylor McHarg, I am Ari Tepkin. This is the Big 12 Football Championship pregame show on the field at AT&T Stadium for TuneIn and Big 12 Studios. Along with Taylor McCarr, the former Rice quarterback, I am Ari Tepkin. So happy to be with you 1 hour away from kickoff of the 2025 Big 12 Football Championship presented by Edward Jones. Thanks for checking us out here on TuneIn and on Big 12 Studios. We are about 15 minutes away from visiting with the head football coach of Texas Tech, Joey Maguire, and we'll get his keys to winning today and just how incredible it is for his program to be in this spot. But Taylor, I'll start with you.
Yeah.
What are the keys for this game? What are the key matchups? What are you zeroed in on?
BYU has got to get to third and short. That's my key for this game, is to avoid your third and long, because I said it earlier, I think you're going to see a lot of 4-down opportunities for BYU. Call this game as though once you get around midfield, every down and distance, so you're trying to get to it third and short because you're going to go for it on fourth. And I expect a number of drives where, because again, you're trying to keep your offense on the field. That was something that BYU struggled with in the first game. It was such a tilted field. They played in the wrong end of the field. They lost the turnover battle, and they couldn't get out of third and long. And I know that may not, it sounds like coach speak. Right. I know that's not, you got to hit the explosives. And you got that. BYU knows they already have to do those things. But against this pass rush, you've got no shot if you're living in third and long. So that's my number one.
So let me stop you right there. So, but like, can you run on first down against them?
It doesn't matter how you accomplish it. You run the football. I think you're going to see
But
Bear
I guess what I'm saying is, do you change what you do? Because, BYU, you say you got to dance with the girl you're with. You get this far, like, be who you are. But, like, you also know that, like, this is a great front. Yeah. Do we flip-flop our play calling a little bit? Maybe throw a little bit more on first down? Like, do you have to kind of be a little bit maybe different than what you're used to being?
I think you have to be okay with 3 yards on first down, 4 yards on first down. You're not going to see, in my opinion, I don't think you see a lot of trying to take a shot on first down. I think you'll see more of a screen game. Yeah. Now, Texas Tech, one of the best screen defenses in college football because they just don't miss tackles. But BYU today, I think you're going to see more in the screen game. I think in order for the RPO game, which BYU is such a good RPO offense, and Bear Bachmeier, when he's at his best, they're running the football well. They're getting it to second and third and short, and that's where the play-action shots come from, and that's where the RPO game comes from. But all of this is dictated on winning first and second down and getting this to third and short. That's my number one key to the game.
Yeah.
The other one, Parker Kingston had a muff punt. We talked to Kalani Sitake about it earlier. His improvement as a returner, he was already a dynamic returner, but that was one of the defining plays in that game because they never really got momentum after that play. He had a punt return for a touchdown in their season finale. There has to be a big play in the return game for BYU or in some sort of special teams today. Whether you're stealing a possession on a blocked punt, you have a big kick or punt return, something has to happen. And Parker Kingston, again, one of the best returners in college football. Those two things, get it to third and short on offense and have a big play, which I think would come from Parker Kingston in special teams.
Any other keys? Those two.
Those two for BYU. For Texas Tech on the other side. Defense, do exactly what you've done all season. Get after the quarterback on early downs. Get into those obvious passing situations. On the offensive side, be better in the red zone. They had to settle for 5 field goals the first time they played and had a couple key drops in the red zone. That's the only area that I think if you pointed to a weakness in the first matchup, that's it. Because it's a 29-7 game. All right, if they convert on a couple of those red zone trips, we're talking about a 42 or 40-7 kind of game. So that's the only element that I think Texas Tech could improve on when they have the ball on offense.
Well, look, I mean, I think, like, not just in this game, but if Tech's going to have success in the playoff, like, 100%. They've got to be better at finishing in the red zone. Like, you're not playing any there's no more West Virginias left, with all due respect to West Virginia. Like, Texas Tech had a lot of success after this game finishing in the red zone, but that's partially based on the teams they were playing.
That's right.
Maybe they have figured some stuff out on offense that's made them more effective in the red zone, but all season, I mean, I talked to Joey after that game. It's like, look, you guys are getting the red zone a lot. You're scoring a lot in the red zone.
That's right.
It's the touchdown percentage. That's the one I look at. That's not nearly where it needs to be, not just in this game, but moving forward. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you see them finishing drives in this game, it's a good indicator of maybe this team has figured some stuff out of the red zone, because you're not winning in the playoffs unless you're finishing every drive that gets to the red zone with a score.
And to be clear, if we think about trying to crystal ball this game, right, what scenario does it take for BYU to win? This cannot turn into a shootout, because Texas Tech gives up less than 270 yards a game, okay? This is not a game where you want to try and trade a track meet running up and down the field. BYU's not really designed for that on offense, number one. And number two, it's not a defense that you're going to be able to consistently do that. If BYU wins this game, we're talking about a 20-17 kind of game.
Right.
If Texas Tech gets to 30 points, in all likelihood, play this game 100 times, I'm not sure BYU wins any of those if it turns into a high-scoring game. BYU, going back to the turnover battle, they lost that 3-0 in the first matchup. Have to take better care of the football, create a takeaway or two on the other side, and stay on the field on offense. This should be a game where you're aiming to dominate time of possession if you can.
Yeah, and the turnover piece is not a coincidence.
Right.
You mentioned earlier with Jacob Rodriguez. Jacob Rodriguez is averaging 1 turnover forced per game. Like, know where he is as a ball carrier and make sure that you are tucking and it is tight.
Right.
Like, because that dude is looking to rip the ball out. That dude's looking for interceptions.
Right.
You know, it wasn't a fluke that they created those 3 turnovers. And so for my keys, I mean, I agree with you on your keys. For BYU, it's protect the football and then try to generate a turnover. Maybe be a little bit more aggressive, you know, in coverage against Baron Morton, because they don't throw a lot of turnovers. Texas Tech does not turn the football over.
Yeah.
But like you said, BYU needs a splash play that you're not expecting, a punt return for touchdown, an interception, something that can help change the tide and build some momentum for them. And look, I mean, Texas Tech hasn't been playing from behind much this season.
Yeah.
They've been in the lead. They've been able to play their style and dictate the terms. They run the football. You know, they play their style. That's what they've been able to do all year. They run the ball. They play defense. They leave with a W, usually by 3 or 4 scores. So if you get Texas Tech playing from behind, they're just not used to it. I mean, BYU isn't either, but maybe more so than Texas Tech is. And so if you get them playing from behind, you don't know what they need, how they're going to play, and what they might do.
Yeah. I'm also curious to see when BYU's on defense, how do they handle these receivers on the outside? That Texas Tech, we talked about the completion percentage for Baron Morton. He leads the Big 12, just under 70% completion percentage. But when they take their shots, he's accurate. And a lot of times it's just a go ball or fade on the outside. BYU, I'm interested to see early in this game, are they in more of a soft zone, keep everything in front and rally and tackle? Or are they more aggressive? Hey, get up to the line of scrimmage, try to get bodies around Baron Morton, get after him, and then play man defense on the outside. 2 very different styles. BYU has the capability of doing both.
Right.
My gut is that you see them play a little off, that they're okay with keep everything in front, rally, and try to get off the field on 3rd down. Because remember how well they did in the red zone. I think BYU is content to, if Texas Tech moves down the field, that's okay, as long as you bow up and force them into a field goal.
And the thing, you know, the reason I asked you about, you know, does BYU need to be a little bit different? And, you know, it feels like if both of these teams play their style, Texas Tech is going to win.
Agreed.
And that's why it almost seems like BYU needs to do something a little bit different in order to flip the script a little bit. Whereas, like, most of the games that BYU has gone into this year, it's like, all right, we just play our game, we're going to win.
Right.
We just, you know, run the football, play defense, let's get out of here with a win. Same with Texas Tech. In this game, though, that's not the game. Like, I think Tech can feel confident in doing that. Like, we can play our style and win. BYU, I think, has to try to create some momentum, generating something happening, because they can't just play their style and expect to win. Maybe they can, and it'll be a surprise to me, but for me, if it's like both teams go in and do what we do, play our style, Texas Tech's going to win that.
There's no doubt. And that's why I said for BYU, special teams is going to be huge. This is not a game. If you're kicking off and it's a touchback and you're punting and it's a fair catch and that's all that happens on special teams,
that's a win for
BYU.
Tech.
It's a win for Tech, and BYU probably loses. I mean, this is a game when you're the underdog, an underdog of almost 2 touchdowns. You've got to steal a possession or make an explosive play happen in the kick game. And that could be BYU creating a takeaway, forcing a fumble on punt return, or when they're punting rather. Something has to happen for BYU, because you're exactly right. If you just line up and play and you try to just go down for down with Texas Tech is too talented. Again, Texas Tech, they got to this point because they don't really beat themselves.
Right.
So BYU, I mean, that's your challenge. You've got to figure out a way to force them into a mistake or 2.
Yeah, you just heard the roar of the crowd. We're on the Texas Tech side here at AT&T Stadium on the field, and the Texas Tech team just came out. They were out here warming up earlier. They went back to the locker room, got dressed. Now they're on the field as we're closing in on under an hour away from kickoff inside AT&T Stadium. So happy you decided to join us here on TuneIn and on Big 12 Studios with Taylor McHarg. I am Ari Temkin. All right, so talk about key matchups, key players. And, you know, one of the guys that we've hit on throughout the show today, you just talked about with special teams. You know, for me, BYU, Taylor, obviously Bear Bachmeier is a key player. True freshman, big spot for him. He's played a lot of football, though, already. And, is he really a true freshman anymore? No, he's way more experienced than that. We know LJ Martin's important. We know the running game's important. For me, it's Parker Kingston's the most important player in this game for BYU. And the reason for that is because, one, Chase Roberts, who's their normal main receiver, he's been nursing an injury. Parker Kingston is their take the top off, down the field receiver. He's a guy that has track speed, former track star in Utah. And not only that, can affect the game as a punt returner. He had multiple punt returns for a touchdown last year. He had one last week, so he's had one this year. And so, he's a guy, he's leading them in receiving this year in terms of receiving yards. He's a guy that can majorly take over this game in a way that would flip the script for BYU.
I'm going to go with one that, not a stunner. Jacob Rodriguez may be the best player on both teams on the field.
Yep.
At any point, regardless of which phase is in the game, he just won the Butkus Award. Don't let, if you're BYU, Jacob Rodriguez be a game wrecker, because that's what he does. Whether it's he's punching the ball out and he's creating a takeaway, or that Bear Bachmeier interception we talked about earlier where he works back, reads quarterback's eyes, gets a hand on it, and ends up being a tip ball interception. Those are the things that BYU, you've got to avoid that today because he's so good. It's not just that he creates, punches the ball out, or he leads them in tackles with 101 tackles. His eyes on the quarterback and getting a hand up and creating interceptions, some of which are not his. Like the tip ball that we talked about with Bear Bachmeier. Don't let Jacob be a game wrecker. That's the thing for BYU. You've got to figure out a way. If you're going to lose and other people are going to make plays, just don't let it be him.
Yeah, it's a great point. And look, it's almost like keep him from New York if you're BYU.
Right.
Because the voters this year have been advised to wait until after the championship games to turn in their votes.
Right.
So, if Rodriguez has splash plays in this game, then, that will play a major role in getting him to New York. The body of work should be enough. We talked about that.
Yeah.
But it might not be. And we know voters are fickle. And, if they're tuning into this game and they see Rodriguez have an interception, have a fumble, have 25 tackles or something ridiculous, he's getting to New York. If you're BYU, you got to keep Jacob Rodriguez from making a difference, from standing out in this game.
Leading tackler and creates a takeaway a game on one of the best defenses in college football for a team that has never been defined by their defense. I can't think of a better story for why somebody should be a Heisman finalist, especially in a year where we don't have a bunch of dynamic finalists. This is not we're waiting for the Big Ten championship because in all likelihood, the way odds look right now, it's the quarterback of the winning team. And that means you didn't have these Heisman moments down the stretch where somebody's gone out and taken the award. So I think Jacob Rodriguez, regardless, has earned and has the merit to be in New York. I also think this is not a year where you've got four other people that, it's going to be a hard decision to include him. I think regardless of what happens today, Jacob Rodriguez should be a finalist and should be in New York for the Heisman.
It's a great point. All right, do you have a key player for BYU, or is it Parker Kingston?
I think it's also Parker Kingston, and I'll say Bear Bachmeier, a key player every game, you could say, for your quarterback, but Bear Bachmeier's legs specifically. He's got to run the football. You don't need him running for 100 yards, but he needs to pick up 2 or 3 first downs in this game, right? You need him extending a play, and we talked about it on Inside the 12 this week. For a freshman, he does such a good job with his decision-making when it breaks down, getting vertical, picking up a first down, and then getting down. That has to happen today. So it's not just, of course, your quarterback needs to be a key player, but extending drives and utilizing his legs, I think, is going to be huge today.
Right. It's such a good point about Bear is if you're going to be in third and short in this game, it's going to be about Bear making the decision to pick up 3, 4, 5 yards with legs when it's there because you're right. He's not I think when we think about, some of the best rushing quarterbacks, it's breakaway speed, he's just so effective with his legs. He's a linebacker. It's funny he wears 47.
Right.
He really, in some ways, becomes more of a linebacker, a load, a fullback. He's a guy that's hard to take down. So I agree. I think, another key player for BYU is the running ability of Bear. Right. So not necessarily Bear Bachmeier, the quarterback, but just that rushing attack of LJ Martin, Sione Moa, if we see any of him, and then Bear, because that's tough to stop. That's why they've been so effective in their ground game. It's not just LJ Martin, it's the effectiveness that Bear has in that two-headed monster of the rushing attack.
That's exactly right. And keeping him upright when they do need to throw the football, right? But if it's not there, I'll say it again, it doesn't have to be 100 yards on the ground and a couple of big explosive runs. Great for BYU if he creates that. But to me, it's more, there's got to be some drive extenders that happen on the ground, because that's what they lacked. Again, in the first matchup, I'll say that stat one more time, 4 of 17 combined on 3rd and 4th down conversions. That can't happen today if BYU wants any chance of winning this game.
Well said. I'll tell you another key player for me for Texas Tech would be Bryce Pollock in the back end of the defense for Texas Tech. Because we talk so much about, well, BYU needs to hit some explosives, needs to hit some passing plays. I mean, he's the captain of the back end of that defense. He's been so good all year, and he's the guy where it's like, if he's on Chase Roberts, and or if he travels, or if he stays on one side, it'd be really interesting to see how they try to attack that secondary of Texas Tech. But he's been the leader of that secondary. He's a key piece. I think if BYU is going to make plays in the secondary, it's going to be because Pollock or the secondary wasn't in the right spot.
Yeah. The only other thing that's a key to this game that we haven't talked about, BYU weathering the storm early, because I think this environment is going to be, it'll be the loudest environment they played in all year.
I mean, we are 49 minutes away from kickoff, and listen to this. It sounds like we're like 5 minutes from kickoff.
Right. So they're going to need to weather the storm. If they can get an early score, I think that would benefit them tremendously, because this is, if they get down early and the crowd builds, I think that's worst case scenario for BYU.
Yeah, and it almost becomes worse than Jones AT&T because you're indoors.
Correct. And there's going to be 85,000 people here. And Jones AT&T Stadium's a great atmosphere. It's not going to be as loud there as it is here today.
Right, inside it's always going to be louder. All right, Taylor McCarg, Ari Tepkin. We've got so much more to get to, including Joey Maguire coming up here in about 5 minutes from now. You're not going to want to miss Joey. Some of the best parts of this job are getting to talk to some of these coaches.
Yeah.
And there aren't two people or coaches much better than Kalani Sitake and Joey Maguire. Genuine people, obviously great football coaches,
right.
It's a given.
And that they clearly have a ton of respect for one another. When we talked with each of them, they mentioned how much respect, and especially Kalani Sitake talking about Joey Maguire and what he's done here, and for Joey Maguire saying happy for Kalani Sitake that he signed this extension, that he's going to stay in this league. And they're two of the best in the sport. We appreciate them, the access that we've had to them this week. We talked to them on Inside the 12, talked to them both in the lead up to this show today. These are two of the top class guys in this sport, and very thankful for the Big 12 that they both signed those extensions and will be here for a long time.
All right, that's Taylor McCarg. I am Ari Tepkin. Coming up, we're going to be picking the game, give you our final thoughts and final keys. But on the way next, the Texas Tech head football coach, fresh off his 7-year extension, Joey Maguire, joins us. This is the Big 12 Football Championship pregame show on TuneIn and Big 12 Studios. Well, the Big 12 championship is here, along with Taylor McHarg. I am Ari Temkin. So great to have you with us here from the Big 12 championship at AT&T Stadium between Texas Tech and BYU. And we are so excited right now to be joined by the head football coach at Texas Tech, Joey Maguire. And, when you consider, Coach, that this is the first ever appearance for Texas Tech in a Big 12 championship game with an opportunity for Texas Tech to win its first ever Big 12 championship in football. I mean, what does it mean to you personally and professionally to be leading this program onto the stage?
Honestly, it means everything. I've gotten so many texts and emails and cards from Red Raiders. One of the greats, a punter for us and punted for the Chicago Bears, a Super Bowl winner in 1985, Maury Buford. He actually sent me a text saying, "Man, I'm texting this right now with tears in my eyes. I've been waiting 47 years for this team." And so that's how it's been all week long. It's pretty incredible to get to this point.
Coach, if you go back to really all season, but especially the first matchup against BYU and everything that went into that game, you have College Game Day there. The eyes of the sport are on your program for that moment. How much do you think that benefits your team and just getting ready for this atmosphere that you're going to have today, where we're expecting to sell out? It's going to be a huge environment, but it feels like you guys have sort of been building to and getting used to these kinds of environments all season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot like what it was. The environment and the energy today is going to be a lot like what it was on game day. And I know there'll be a great number of BYU Cougars, but Red Raider Nation is going to be at full effect today. The Raider power is going to be deafening, and I expect us to have somewhat of a home field advantage. And then the energy that day, the energy in our stadium was incredible. I think it's going to be like that today, and I think it's going to give us an advantage.
When you look at the swings of this season, the ups and downs, the growth moments, the setbacks, what do you feel most shaped this team into one capable of reaching a Big 12 title game and being Big 12 champions potentially?
Well, I think it started winning that game at Utah. You're talking about one of the best teams in the nation. We're playing there. One of the greatest environments I've ever been a part of. I think that really started, and you had confidence in the team. Barron got banged up in that game, and Will came in and played great. Then you turn to me. I think there was a pivotal moment. We lost Skylar Gill-Howard in the Kansas game, and we lost Barron Morton. Then we turn around and we lose the one game we've lost this year. And Lee Hunter came into our head strength coach, Lance Barlow, and he said, "What do I need to do so this doesn't happen again?" And he said, "Skylar is out. You have got to become the voice of this team." Because Skylar Gill-Howard really was the voice on and off the field. And he's a huge voice off the field now. I always mess with Skylar. He has not been beat with him. We have not been beat with him on the sideline or on the field. But Lee really took that serious, and I'll never forget that Tuesday, our first practice after that loss, he called everybody out. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're on offense, defense, it was good and it was bad. I mean, he challenged everybody, and he's really become the vocal leader of this team.
Coach, going back to the first matchup again with BYU and getting after Bear Bachmeier, making him uncomfortable, getting them in third and long situations. This team, it feels like, has been in a lot of ways defined by your pass rush. Your ability with your front seven on defense, I think, is the number one thing that jumps out to a lot of people. But it's not just guys like Romello Height and David Bailey. You mentioned Lee Hunter, but also Jaden Cofield. It feels like there's always somebody, whether it's one of the top names that we've mentioned, or maybe it's somebody that's just a backup or in that two deep, that it doesn't matter necessarily who it is. Somebody is getting after the quarterback each week.
Yeah, the depth, that was one thing in the spring that we knew. The depth of this defense, especially the front, was just absolutely incredible. I'd never been a part of it. I mean, we had guys that were starting that, the year before that became twos and in some cases threes that rotated through. So, we're able to play a lot of guys up front. I think they played a really high standard. That's because of the starters, and the standard whenever they step on the field has to be the same. We talk about it all the time. Stop the run. if you stop the run, you've earned the right to rush the passer. And that's what we're going to try to do today. I mean, I think LJ Martin's carried the ball 88 times since the last time we played, and we are going to have to get after him today. And if we do, they're going to have to throw the football. And I'm just telling you, man, whenever you know that you've got to throw the football and you let Lee Hunter and David Bailey and Ramoa Height, Cofield and AJ Holmes, you let them pin their ears back, they are tough to block.
We're talking with Joey Maguire here, the head football coach at Texas Tech, and also congratulations on your extension. Obviously, well deserved after your first 3 years at Texas Tech. What a remarkable run it's been so far, and can't wait to see what the next 7 years hold for Texas Tech football, including obviously today's game and the future of this season. As we look at this game, Bear Bachmeier, what an interesting player from the standpoint of a true freshman. Wasn't at BYU in spring, comes in. And like, what kind of growth have you seen from him? And what have you seen when you watch film from the growth, even in a short period of time, like from last time you guys played them versus what you've seen from him in the last 3 games?
He's incredible. On Thursday, they came out with the top 4 freshmen, which always is interesting to me because a redshirt freshman and a freshman are really different. But I sent a tweet out like, how do we miss Bear? How do you take a kid that wasn't there at semester, that went through and learned a whole new offense, and he's playing at this level, that he's got his team in the Big 12 championship? He's 11-1. I mean, he is special. He's an impressive player. I know this is going to sound crazy and everything, but he's a true freshman. The guy, it is so hard to rattle him. And he's physical. He throws the ball, I think, at a very high level. Will only get better. And then the dude's a throwback, man. He's wearing 47, man. Like, what? I've never met a quarterback with a single digit. It's hard enough for me to get him in 12, which is a quarterback. Most of them want single digits. This dude's wearing 47 like he's a linebacker just wanting to rip his face off. That's how he plays, man. I love the kid. For anything for the Big 12, for me, I voted for him. If I had a vote for freshman of the year, he would 100% get my vote. I think he's really special. That's what's so important with us is stopping the run, because we do have to try to, get him off his mark and maybe try to do something more than what he's used to doing.
Coach, I want to ask you about your quarterback, Baron Morton. And I remember I had your opener in your first game, 2022. And I remember at the time you had Tyler Shuck, who was going to be the guy before he got injured. But you told us, man, our young guy, this Baron Morton kid from Eastland, he's going to be pretty good. And how special it is and how unique his journey is, that in this era of college football where guys move around quite a bit, that he has been there for so long. He's a West Texas kid. And you talk about getting to this first Big 12 championship and all the special things with this season, that you're led by a guy that sort of embodies Texas Tech in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you cut him, he's going to bleed red and black, man. He's all in. He was born here in Lubbock. His dad was a high school coach at Lubbock Monterey. Then they moved and still a West Texas high school coach at Midland Lee. Then he's a head coach at Eastland. And, he's just grown up out here. I mean, everything about him is West Texas tough. He's got a high football IQ. He has got great arm talent. And he is honestly the toughest player I've ever coached. There are a lot of players in the last 3 years, a lot of quarterbacks in the last 3 years that haven't played with certain things going on. And honestly, maybe if he's not at Texas Tech, he doesn't do this, because what a lot of people don't know is one of the toughest dudes playing, period, is Pat Mahomes. And Pat played with a lot of different things at Texas Tech. And I think that kind of was that West Texas. That's kind of what you are. And it inspired Barron to be that tough guy. And, man, he's his own worst enemy sometimes. I mean, I've sometimes I haven't said stuff, and then as of late, he's feeling really good. I've had to basically say, hey, look, this is what we are going to do. I know you don't like it, but let's make sure we do this. And he feels great, and he's as healthy as he has been. And I'm going to tell you, this is a huge game for us today. We want the bye. Like, we want to be in the top 4, because if you give us a little bit more time off to where we can get totally healthy, that's where I think we can even play better.
Yeah, well said. I remember talking to you at Big 12 Media Days and saying, like, it's on you now. There's so much talent here. It's, the talent piece is there. It's on you to coach them up and get the best out of them. And you've really embraced that, obviously, by doing that. But what has this season done to challenge you? What's been maybe your biggest challenge this season?
My whole challenge from the get go, whenever we put this roster together, and I can't thank the Matador Club and everybody that's a part of that, led by Cody Campbell, enough of what they did, to get these guys in. But mine was all about creating the team, the chemistry, the brotherhood, because there was no doubt talent was here, whether it was they were coming back and Jacob Rodriguez and Barron, Ben Roberts, John Curry, those guys, or they were added with David Bailey and Lee Hunter and just different guys, Reggie Virgil, Caleb Douglas decided to come back. So we had so much talent, but there's a lot of teams. Y'all see it all the time. I'm not going to call any universities out who've had payrolls or freshman classes that cost more than my entire team. And, there's different stuff that people couldn't get it done. It all goes back to the chemistry and how much they care about each other. And are they willing to work at the level that you need to work at to win at the level we want to win? I mean, that's the key. And so my job this whole time has been, hey, create great chemistry to where you can push these guys somewhere that they didn't think they could go or have never been before. Lee Hunter came to my office. It's probably after the Arizona State game too, and he goes, Coach, I've never won in college football. He had never been a part of a winning team. I don't think he's ever been to a bowl game. And he said it's really important. And I said, well, just keep doing what you're doing and help me push these guys. And that's what they've done, man. This is the closest group I've ever coached. I've coached for 31 years. I know you can't tell with all the gray hair, but I've done this for a long time. This is the closest group I've ever been a part of.
Coach, we've got all sorts of storylines and things coming into this game that I think we've already talked about pass rush. We've talked about physicality. We've talked about your quarterbacks. What's an area that has your attention that maybe is under the radar, whether that's a position group or a specific matchup that you're like, you know what, pay attention here, even if it's not one of the main storylines?
Yeah, I want to, there's three guys that I think it's really important to watch, and they have to play at a high level this weekend, and they did the first time. But like Jacob Rodriguez, he'll be the first one to tell you, man, it's because of the other guys around him, but he gets all the credit. But I'm going to tell you, John Curry, Ben Roberts, and Cole Wisniewski, number 6, number 13, and number 5. That's our strong safety star. That's our Mike linebacker, and that's our boundary safety. And those guys, they tackled at an elite level when we played them the first time, because you're tackling large humans when you're playing BYU. The quarterback and the running back alone is like 230 and 250. I don't care what they put on their roster. I mean, they're huge, large humans. I think those three guys have got to play at a really high level. And then our offensive line, we didn't play our best when we played them. Barron got hit 2 times because of him and 2 times because of the O-line and the running backs. I think we got to play at a better pad level. I think if our O-line plays with better pad level and then those 3 guys I've talked about, John and Ben and Cole, if they play really well, then we'll be in good shape.
I need to ask you about your T-shirt, the shirt you're wearing right now, because we were talking a little bit before. But yeah, make sure to stand up and show everybody the shirt you got on, and tell us about the Dead Rabbits. Yeah,
it's awesome, man. So Kenny Perry, who's the ultimate tough guy. I mean, he's a stud. Whenever he came here, he brought it with him. It's off the Gangs of New York. So the toughest gang in New York at the time is a great movie too. Are the Dead Rabbits. And so he named our walk-ons, and then any of those guys, walk-ons that made the special teams groups, the Dead Rabbits. Trent Lowe is actually the leader of the Dead Rabbits. But I'll tell you what was really cool too that he did. It's a little bit different now because of NIL and revenue sharing. But year 2 and year 3, he actually had a group of business owners get together, and there were like each year 5 to 6 guys that got an NIL deal with this group to help them pay for their school as walk-ons, and it's the Dead Rabbits. So there's a group of guys, a couple of them will be on the sideline pregame. They have these shirts, they have hats, and they're really proud of being able to help some walk-ons, take some care of some of those bills and everything like that, and so really, really cool story. Just to kind of go back to college football and where we're going in one wrong direction is roster limits, because now you're going to have less dead rabbits. And you need if a kid wants to come to school and pay for his own way, I don't know why we would keep him off the roster. So not to get into what's wrong with college football and what's right with college football. What's right with college football is we got a bunch of dead rabbits that are going to play today in AT&T Stadium.
Coach, we get one more, get you out of here. We really appreciate you doing this. Just your kind of closing thoughts. I know it's not the time for reflection right now. You got a lot of football left to play this season, but just how special this run has been and how important this means, not just for your kids, but for this fan base.
Yeah, it's huge. I said it the first year. I think Ari and I talked about it, at Big 12 Media Day. Like, we pushed all our chips in, and the whether it was pressure, whatever you want to call it. I mean, we knew that how important it was to get to this moment today. What all we did, and that the university and the administration went all in, and we got here. Now we got to finish it off. Man, there's a trophy. I've got a place in the trophy room for that trophy. It's actually blank, except it has a little block that says "Believe" on it. And man, we want to take that block off. I'll take another trophy out there and put that block next to go win another one. But we want to put that Big 12 trophy in that trophy room.
Love it. 34-17 in 4 years at Texas Tech. One of the great people and football coaches, Joey Maguire. Good luck today, Coach, and good luck the rest of the season. Thank you for your time and appreciate it very much.
Yeah, really appreciate it, Coach.
Thank y'all. Wreck 'em.
Along with Taylor McHarg, I am Ari Temkin here on the field at AT&T Stadium before the start of the Big 12 Championship here for 2025. And it's crazy. I mean, these are the two best teams in the conference, Taylor.
We got to this point in the season, and there were so many ups and downs. If you go back to the beginning of November, how many teams were still, that we were talking about, had a chance to get to this point. But I think all along, especially Texas Tech, I think we thought all season this was the most talented team, the most complete team, and BYU continuing to build that confidence. We've talked about it with Bear Bachmeier at quarterback, the true freshman, and it does feel like we got the two best teams in the league, and this should be a fantastic atmosphere and game today.
Yeah, how much, as you mentioned, the true freshman side of for Bear, like how much does that impact this game, do you think? Or do you think he's just played in so many big games already that it's not going to affect him?
I think he was affected the first go-around, right? And I think we talked with Kalani Sitake about this very thing on Inside the 12 this week. Having that environment where you had all the hoopla, the entire eyes of the sport were on that game in their first matchup. I think the entire team for BYU, but especially your freshman quarterback and Bear Bachmeier, I think will have benefited from that moment and that environment. I expect him to be much more poised today, and that goes for the entire roster for BYU. That's the only game all season that BYU looked a little shell-shocked, and I do not expect that to be the case here today. I think they'll be much more poised today.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about this matchup, we've talked so much about it. How much do you think the conference benefits big picture from having two one-loss teams in this? Because this is the first time since the conference championship has been back for the Big 12 to only have two one-loss teams as opposed to a two-loss team.
Well, I think it's huge, and I think that BYU already should be a top 10 team. I think BYU should be a playoff team regardless of what happens today. In my opinion, this is one of the top teams in the country, and they belong in the college football playoff. We talked about scenarios that what I think needs to happen for BYU. Obviously, if they win, they're in. Texas Tech, I don't think it matters what happens today. I think they're in the college football playoff. But for BYU, again, if they end up losing and it's close, I still think there's an outside shot that they get in. We'll see what happens with Alabama as well. Or in Notre Dame, what happens to them? They're not playing today. So I think it's huge for the health of the league. Also, going back to our point a minute ago, how many teams were playing relevant football in the month of November? It wasn't long ago we were talking about Houston and Cincinnati having a chance at winning this league, and I think, again, that speaks to the health of the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's been more top-heavy than it's ever been.
Yep.
And, I don't know that the perception has yet caught up with it because, BYU is ranked 11th or 12th in the last CFP rankings. 11, I think.
Yep.
I mean, it's the lowest ranking for a one-loss Power 4, Power 5 conference, conference team ever in terms of the end-of-the-year rankings. So it's weird because it's almost like the public perception of this league is, well, it's still a league of parity, and yet it's been more top-heavy this year. And so obviously, because Utah has two losses, to BYU and to Texas Tech.
Right.
BYU has the Texas Tech lost. Tech lost to Arizona State, but that was a different Arizona State team. Other than that, it's like they only lost to each other. They didn't lose to anybody else.
Right. And going back to Texas Tech, I think all season very clearly was the dominant team in this league. Talked about the margin of victory and how many times did we look up in the fourth quarter of a Texas Tech game and they've run away with it. BYU has gotten better and better as the season has gone along. And I think the two defining games to me that they won, obviously Utah, a rivalry game, the way that they came back and won that. And the one that we don't talk about enough is how they beat TCU, a team that was surging late in the year and playing well down the stretch. And they went up to Provo and got dominated by BYU. And I thought that was the best game, complete game for Bear Bachmeier all season. So I think that's the version of Bear Bachmeier that BYU needs here today.
Yeah. All right. Final thoughts. We'll pick the game. We are just moments away from the 2025 Big 12 championship here at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. Arguably the biggest championship game of the weekend.
I think Texas Tech wins this game. I think that's my pick for the day. I think the Red Raiders win this game, but
Hold
on.
We'll get there. Sorry, I queued you up too early on that one because there's a few more things we got to get to before we get there. But let me. Do you think this is the biggest championship game of the weekend?
I think this has, in terms of implications for who
big
gets
picture.
in the back end of the top 10, I think that, yes, this has the most implications or the heaviest implications for the college football playoff. I also think this has a chance to be the most competitive game.
Yeah.
I would put this right up against the Big Ten championship, just in terms of I think we're going to have a really good atmosphere, and I think this is going to be a lot closer than what the guys in Vegas seem to think. I think BYU is going to play a lot better in this game than they did in the initial matchup.
Okay, so again, before we pick this game, give me if BYU is to win this game, and I know you just mentioned that Tech's going to win it, and I agree, but we'll get to the full pick in a moment.
Sure.
If BYU is going to win it, what has to happen?
They have to win special teams. It's something that they really struggle with the first go-around. They've got to stay on the field on 3rd and 4th down. They were 4 of 17 combined on 3rd and 4th down in the first matchup. Cannot turn the ball over. They lost the turnover battle 3-0 in the first matchup, and they do exactly what they did on defense in the first matchup, force Texas Tech into field goal opportunities when they get in the red zone. Don't trade field goals for touchdowns.
You know, it's funny because when you look at the last game, it's like, don't turn it over 3 times.
Right.
Play better on special teams. Be better on 3rd down. But keep doing what you're doing on defense.
Exactly.
In the red zone against Texas Tech. So it's like, hopefully, you know, if you're BYU and you fix all the first game things, but also keep that part, you'll be fine.
And it's easier said than done, right? Because that's
right.
what this pass rush for Texas Tech, David Bailey and Romello Heights,
Right.
that's what
That's
they
what they
cause
do.
you to do. That's where you get to your 3rd and longs and where you can't convert. That's where the turnovers come from. So, look, I think this, again, I keep saying it, BYU, I think, is much more prepared for this moment today than that first go-around when they went on the road to Lubbock.
And the other thing on the 3rd and 4th down, which is a great point by you, you know, when you can't run the ball, LJ
Right.
Martin had just returned, as we've talked about on the show today, 10 for 35. If you can't run the ball, and now you're in 3rd and long or 3rd and medium against this defense, like, forget about it. I mean, you need to be living more 3rd and short or avoid 3rd down because
100%.
you know it's coming, and you can try to do whatever you could chip, you could bring double teams, but they got 2 guys that are NFL pass rushers.
You get it to 3rd and long situations against, you know, most teams in the country, you're going to struggle on 3rd down. You get to 3rd and medium plus against this Texas
Right.
Tech front, it's over. And I think that goes back to also special teams and field position, because the quarterback, and on offense, don't turn the football over. Baron Morton, we haven't even talked about in this closing segment. He's been the most consistent quarterback in the Big 12. Leads the Big 12 in completion percentage, just under 70%. All of the things that they've done on the offensive side have been in support of their defense.
Yeah.
I think the defense is clearly the stronger unit, and that's not a disservice to what Texas Tech has done on offense. I just think this is a top 5 total defense in college football, maybe actually the best. In all of college football. But on the offensive side for Texas Tech, they have done such a good job since that BYU game at improving their red zone offense. That's the only thing that I could see. If Texas Tech can convert those red zone trips into touchdowns, then maybe this game looks more like what it did the first go around.
Yeah, and it almost seems, as we try to answer the question, like what's the path for BYU winning, or what's the path for Tech winning? It's almost like more of it's dependent upon BYU playing more perfect than Tech. It's like, because if BYU gets out in front and has Texas Tech chasing, which is something that Texas Tech's not used to, that's just, we haven't seen that, so we don't know how they'd react in that. But if Texas Tech can dictate the terms, right? I mean, if they can run the football, if they can, cause 3 and outs or quick drives on BYU's offense, it's like that. That's the style they want to play. That's where they live, and that's the style that's going to favor them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, for BYU, there is a huge element to this game of, and I know it sounds like coach speak, but staying on the field and winning your drives, even if that doesn't end in points, or even if that doesn't end in the end zone, but playing keep away. A lot of times your best defense is having a good offense. And if you can convert on 3rd down, pick up a 4th down, and then that's where you need the splash plays. You need a big play on special teams. You need a turnover or 2. But this Texas Tech team is too good to drive the length of the field and have 10, 12, 15 play drives. You're going to have those splash and chunk plays in order to have success on offense.
As somebody, Taylor, that played the quarterback position like you, it's funny because Morton, I don't know that Morton's been elite this year. He's been, a game manager has a bad connotation. I think it can be a very successful quarterbacks can be game managers. It's knowing the right plays to get into. It's, it's being a leader. It's making the throws when you need to, but it's not, 400 yards passing and 4 touchdowns every game. That's what Morton's been, more of a game manager, and the highest praise I can give him. For Texas Tech not just to win this game, but to go far in the playoffs, do they need him to be more elite, or do you think that they can play this style and go far in the playoffs?
I think they need their offense as a whole to be better in the red zone. It may not matter today if this matchup looks like, and I don't think it will, but if it looks like the first matchup against BYU, it may not matter as much today. But for Texas Tech that has legitimate national championship aspirations, and I think there's enough talent on this team to legitimately win the national championship, they have to be better in the red zone, and they have to hit their shot plays at a little higher clip.
Yeah.
When they've been at their best, those are the two things that they've done really, really well. And there were some times earlier in the season where they were a lot better at it. Down the stretch in the month of November, they were much improved in their red zone offense. Baron Morton, again, two things that he's done extremely well. He's taken care of the football and his completion percentage that we talked about. And so being a game manager like you just said, for most quarterbacks, that is a compliment. Right? I mean, that is, you're not having – Sawyer Robertson wasn't able to be a game manager for Baylor because they had him throw the football everything 60 times a game. That's not what you want. This is a team game, and they've got a guy in Baron Morton. We haven't – he's a West Texas kid. He's been on campus in Lubbock since 2021. He embodies what it means to be a Red Raider in a lot of ways, and this means so much to him and his family. And I think – you talk about that career arc and getting to this moment. He doesn't have to do anything beyond what he's done all season. Doesn't have to put the S on his chest and be Superman. Just do exactly what they've done all season, and I think Tech will get out of here with a win.
It's such a good point. And you think about Baron Morton and Jacob Rodriguez, there's so much talk about how much money Tech spent in the portal, all the talent they have. But you think about, like, the two true leaders on the field on this team. Jacob Rodriguez, the famously former Virginia quarterback who transfers over and walks on and sleeping on his couch, and Baron Morton. And I thought Rodriguez was a guy that was always a great player that got lost in a horrible defense. So it's just interesting to see this team, this culmination, trying to win their first ever Big 12 championship for Texas Tech, and those two guys who exactly embody everything that Tech stands for.
And when we talked with Joey Maguire this week on Inside the 12, we hit on this exact point that everyone spends money in college football now. This is not unique to Texas Tech that they went out and did something that no one else is doing.
They were 10th in the nation in
They
spending.
did exactly what you're supposed to do, and they went out and got the #1 transfer portal class. That's the first part. The harder part is getting them into your system and winning football games. And that's a credit to Joey Maguire and this staff for getting them bought in. Everything's quick now. You're trying to build your roster and then get on the same page in one offseason, and they accomplished it. And they got to this point with guys, David Bailey, obviously, Romello Height. There are a number of talented players that we haven't talked about as much. But Jacob Rodriguez, like you mentioned, he gets, winning the Butkus Award when Joey gave him that award last night, talked about, he's been able to make a lot of these plays because of that D-line, and that's why you got so many different elements to this defense and that front seven and how they get after the quarterback together as a unit.
All right. We're leading up to kickoff here. We're close. You got Texas Tech winning.
Yeah.
Give me your sense of how this game will go, Taylor.
Yeah, I think this will be a lot closer than the first go-around. I do not expect BYU to be shell-shocked and flat on the offensive side like they were the first go-around. I also think Parker Kingston on special teams, that's the X factor to me. That's the one guy. He had a muffed punt in the first matchup. He's one of the best returners in college football. Just had a punt return for a touchdown in their final game. I would expect special teams specifically to have a huge impact in this game. I think it's close, but I think Texas Tech overall, they're a more talented team. They're the best team in the Big 12, and I think they get out of here with a win. I think this is a one-score, maybe 9 to 10 point at most kind of game. I don't see this being nearly as lopsided as the first go-around.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think Vegas has this number right. I take Texas Tech to win outright, but I think BYU would cover the spread here, and it'll be close. And look, then it comes down to, does BYU potentially jump up? In the rankings, depending on what happens elsewhere. If Bama wins, is there an argument to be made for BYU over a 3-loss Bama team? We'll see. But I'm with you. I think they played shell-shocked. Maybe it was because of their true freshman quarterback. They just, the moment was too big in Lubbock and they weren't ready for it. It feels like they'll be ready for this. Like special teams, BYU's good on special teams. They were atrocious in Lubbock on special teams. They're going to be better. They're going to be better, more effective. I think they're going to be more composed. And I expect LJ Martin to go off a little bit. Will he get 100 yards? I'm not sure. But I expect him to have a much more effective game that will help to keep the BYU offense on the field more and more sustainable drives.
I think we're on the same page.
All right. The kickoff of the 2025 Big 12 Football Championship presented by Edward Jones is coming up next on TuneIn. Of course, you can always catch Taylor McHarg on Inside the 12 as part of Big 12 Studios. Myself, Ari Temkin, on Big 12 Today, weekday mornings from 7 to 10 a.m. Central, 8 to 11 Eastern Time on TuneIn and on Big 12 Studios. My bad on that, setting you up early.